I've had good luck with Zoom recording, so.
Well, I have bad luck with Zoom, so knock on wood, it's going to be okay now. Whew. Okay, salvete. Mihi nomen est Stella et hoc est Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 193 for July MMXX. This episode of Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by the Batman Universe and JL May 2020. Batgirl the Oracle is also brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. If you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. And they actually I get their newsletter, and they're normally, I think they're like the nicest business ever. And they sent out like the most angry that I've ever seen them. It had a DC logo and like a cross through. It was like, "We hate DC" sale of some sort, just because DC is getting rid of their diamond distributors. So it's obviously going to hit a lot. So I feel it. Well, we're doing another video podcast because we're in unprecedented times. Why not do something special? The nice thing about video podcasts is that you guys on YouTube get it uncut and it's there, so if you can see all the flaws and everything. But there aren't any musical cues, so you have to wait for that later. But you also get fancy facial expressions, and if I crack up, you'll see it live. Yes. So, yeah. I wish you were muted the entire time. Wouldn't that be a fun episode? So with me, you can see this guy. He actually needs a lot of prayer. In 1993, this guy was traveling to Latveria, and he was actually captured, held hostage for 3 years. And in that time, he encountered what people call the Stockholm Syndrome. And so he has turned towards his captors. He is an acolyte of Dr. Doom. He loves him. Look at this. It is, I like to call him Professor Cheapskate. You can call him Professor Quarterbin, but it is Professor Alan Middleton. Welcome.
I like to think of myself as Stella's second favorite professorial guest.
Oh, okay.
So,
who knows?
Coke on coming for you.
I wonder what that would look like if I had a bracket of all my guests and like put it out, and then people voted, and then it got narrowed down, and then who was the best guest. That would be interesting to do. Though Michael Bailey always says that I tried to stir the pot and create controversy where there doesn't need to be any.
No, I don't see that.
Oh man, well, it's great to have you on. I feel like you've not been on before, have you? Besides the call-in shows?
I believe I have been on once before.
Uh-oh. No. Are you gonna remind me? Or are you just gonna sit there doing what you're doing? I'm trying to think.
I do not remember what we talked about. I believe we did. I know you have been on the Quarterbin show a couple of times. Those are the two you've listened to.
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually thinking about you because I thought, was this the first time that I was on? I remember we did an out of context 25-cent Birds of Prey, but I think that was actually Bruce Wayne Fugitive Murderer, wasn't it?
That sounds right.
Yeah. So, but it's good to have you on.
Did we do Girl Frenzy too?
I think we also did that.
Girl Frenzy books. I think so. Yeah.
Yep. So this has been a year plus in the making. I think I put you down, or you either requested it, or I thought, what do you want to do, Officer Down? But it was like so far away, and now here we are. But it's good because it's like my summer blockbuster, so it's actually a special time to potentially do it. It's also a weird time just because of the stuff in the nation that's currently going on with police and everything like that. And I just want to say that with everything that's going on, we certainly, Alan and I, our hearts go out to everybody. And this podcast loves all types of people. It's pro people, basically pro humans. And so we just hate those people that hate. And so, yeah, all I can say is that we're praying for the nation and hoping that something turns around. But Yeah, it's disheartening to turn on the news and see what's going on, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But we're here to somewhat give you an escape. And I mean, when we talk about Officer Down, I think it will come back a bit to current events. Just there's a particular speech that Jim has that I really want to dig into a bit. But what's funny is I want to talk about Arsenal Futbol a bit.
Victoria Concordia Crescit.
That's Latin, folks. It's funny because I think I was aware that you were a fan. And when I visited you in Ohio, yes, there it is. But I've only recently become a fan. And so then I realized like, oh, wow, now we have this connection. I actually saw England's women's team play. Yeah. Whoa, 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 oh. Goodness gracious. I recently saw them play in the She Believes Cup in Jersey. And so that was really exciting. So I just started to get to know the players a bit more. And then Arsenal, I've latched onto them. And so during quarantine, when I was grading or planning, I would go on their website and just watch old games. So I've been doing that, which has been a lot of fun. But yeah, do you prefer the men or the women's, or are you just Arsenal all the way?
Well, the men's side is the one that's easier to see on TV.
Yeah.
And there are a lot more podcasts about it. There's one monthly podcast about the Arsenal ladies. And so it's just easier to keep up with the men's side. Although from watching the game, I've watched actually a lot of like college soccer around here. And I like the women's game in general, just because it's just a little different pace and easier to follow.
Yep.
And so I enjoy, I mean, they're different games. I think it's just important to recognize that. And I was certainly looking forward to really both sides of the Olympics here in 2020 for that tournament, but that gives us next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I've had season tickets to UVA soccer, women's soccer for a long time. And sometimes they'll have a double night. And if you have a ticket, you can stay for the men's later on. And just, I feel like the women have more skill and there's finesse to the game. And the men, it's so fast paced and brutal. It's like you just see lots of hitting and sliding, and it doesn't seem as much finesse, in my opinion. So I just feel like it is more interesting to watch the women's soccer or football. So do you have a favorite? Oh, you go ahead.
In the couple of months ago at the start of the year, I saw an ad for it somewhere online and learned that there was a semi-pro league here in the US, and there's a team here in Columbus, Ohio. So I was getting ready and planned to watch some of those games. It's where M it's out where M works at the library. It's they play at that college. And then then everybody got sick.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll come back. Things are, starting again. I think athletics, they really want to, which there's probably financial reasons for that, to bring it back in. But even the National Women's Soccer League, they're going to have the Championship Cup, I think it's called, late June through. And apparently they're all living in the same village. And someone just told me that one of them has contracted COVID. And I thought, gosh, this is like a petri dish. So if any others happen, I feel like they're going to cancel it, which hopefully they don't. But yeah, and I think you and I were talking about this via Facebook, that women's soccer in general has been hitting its stride and trying to get that equality and getting more viewership, especially because of World Cup. And then to have this happen was really unfortunate, because it's like, oh, up, and then bam, now you've got to pause and you've got to step back and then start. I don't know where they're going to start there.
Yeah, especially on the women's side, it's a game that, from a financial standpoint, you need to have people in the stands. Because the pie chart of the revenue that comes in from broadcast rights versus the in-game experience is much more tilted towards the fans coming in the gate, as opposed to some of the other major sports that can survive just on the TV money. The gate is sort of the bonus money, but you live off the TV. And so not having fans there is a hassle and inconvenience, but for some of the other sports, it's lifeblood. You know, they live off the gate, and if you can't have fans, you can't have the game.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll see. We'll be keeping posted and see what happens in the next, especially next week or so when the college thing happens. Well, I'll transition us now to a new segment that started next time, and it is in tribute to Shag, and it is the Find Your Joy segment, which is called Shag's Mac and Cheese of Comfort and Joy. And so this is the time, we've been talking, especially now, all this bad stuff that's been going on, and COVID was really getting people down. So I thought, instead of constantly talking about that, which is still good to keep in mind current events, what are some things that you have been doing or you found that, oh my gosh, that you've, that's probably going to happen so much, people, so get used to it. But what have you found or been doing to keep your spirits up in these times that we're living in currently?
Well, we've talked about some of this on recent episodes of both Short Box Showcase and Dorkness to Light, and you, of course, as a faithful listener of all my shows, understand that. But I'm a huge fan of the Hoopla digital app that runs through public libraries, and they were very generous during this lockdown era of allowing for extra borrows because folks weren't physically getting to the libraries. And so I did a lot of revisiting, which I tend to not be a rereader or rewatcher of many things. That really is M's. M finds comfort and joy in rewatching things that they know they're going to like. For me, the list of possible things is so long. That backtracking is generally not something that I do, but I needed some comfort and joy, in addition to literally baking a couple sheets of mac and cheese during this time. But in addition to that, I needed some revisiting. So I listened to some of the audiobook versions of Sherlock Holmes books and a couple of Winnie the Pooh books. I'm not afraid to admit that.
Yeah, I won't be afraid to admit the following two things that are new that I have found. So as you are aware, I mean, I should just ignore him like a puppy that won't go away. So then, maybe he'll stop, but who knows? On YouTube, there's the requisite 5 seconds of an ad you have to watch before you can click to skip it. And so I don't know what video I was looking for, but 5 seconds of this romance film popped up. And it looks so intriguingly bad that I ended up watching the rest of the 2-minute trailers called Gabriel's Inferno on this streaming site called Passionflix. And so Passionflix, if you just say it to somebody off the street, they probably will think it's a porn site. I promise you it's not. This website is owned, operated. All of the original films are directed by the sister of Elon Musk, Tosca Musk. And so Donovan had come to visit, which I should also say that was a nice little thing for mac and cheese. There was Donovan visiting. And I had shown him that trailer and he said, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. And so we decided to watch it. I ended up getting the 1 month subscription, $5.99. I thought I can watch all of their originals. And so some of them are just bad. Some of them are bad, but with great, amazing dialogue that no one in the real world would actually say in sort of situations. And there are a couple that were actually pretty good. But I mean, it's like a mature Hallmark channel, but that has actually brought me some joy and some laughs at night. No offense to anyone who officially, who really, really likes it. What they do is, I guess they get popular romance novels and turn them into movies. None of the romance novels I've ever heard of. And I've read my fair share, but they're not picking up.
I'm smelling a required reading crossover. Yes.
Yeah. Could you imagine? Just my authors, like Susan Wiggs, is that she's not on there. But anyways, the other thing is, my mom and dad, I would say, they've been watching like these criminal shows. Mom's been invested in World War II and documentaries on Hitler. And then they're all weird other stuff. And so each time I talk to her, I'm like, you need to watch something that's light and fluffy. And sure enough, I found something. And so on Netflix, we both watched Shaun the Sheep in Farmageddon. And I'm a huge fan of Shaun the Sheep. And it was an amazing movie. And actually, in that movie, there was a Doctor Who reference. Who's it's, what's it's, yeah. And I actually took a video and showed it to Shag. And I thought, aren't you proud, Shag, that I recognized a Doctor Who reference? But that was a lot of fun. And I recommend that as well.
Yeah, Doctor Who is probably my second favorite Doctor.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, there you go.
So,
His Doctor Doom shirt
in the Doctor rankings.
And the Doctor
who is on the list?
Is Victor? Does he have a PhD or is he a medical doctor? I forgot.
Look.
Oh, here we go.
At a ceremony, Provost Victor Von Doom from Dooms.U awarded student Victor Von Doom an honorary doctorate, which is fine. And at a ceremony where valedictorian Victor Von Doom gave an amazing speech as well, by the way. So it's all on the up and up.
Okay.
In case you were questioning that.
As any person with Stockholm syndrome would say about their mentor. Oh my gosh, this is insane. I want to say that at first I think this guy was actually nervous about having a video, but he's just leaning into it, as you can tell. Okay, so we're good. We're finding our joy. So yeah, now we're going to switch. This is weird, but I kind of wanted to balance out how this episode was with the first part and the second part. So we're actually going to do anime watch list, which Alan said that he had something. Alan, do you want to go first with yours? Or do you want me to go first?
I have a manga
watch
reading list.
Okay,
so
that
does that count? Does that count? Okay. Because I have this is by Yuma Ando and Yuki Sato. It is one of my favorite takes or versions of one of my favorite fictional characters of all time, Sherlock Holmes.
Ooh.
And this is Sherlock Bones.
Oh.
We've got high school kid, Takeru Wajimi. And during the time of the series, he graduates. But he is the reincarnation of Dr. John Watson. At least that's what his dog believes. Because the dog, at least when the dog has the pipe in his mouth. See, that's the key. When the dog has the pipe in his mouth, he is the reincarnation of the first world's greatest detective. Sorry, Batman. Sherlock Holmes. And when he is in Holmes mode, he can, of course, communicate with Takeru. And Takeru comes from a police family, so his ability to solve crimes is highly prized, although they really don't understand how he does it, because he's just a kid, and of course they want him to butt out of their cases. And hijinks ensue. And as far as I know, this series has 7 volumes, at least that I know of. I'm on volume 6. And thoroughly enjoying it. You can see I got it from the library. Got them from the library during curbside pickup.
Did they haven't made an anime version of this? Because this seems like it would be popular, like it would transition well into anime form.
They probably have. I don't know.
Okay. I guess I'll look it up, but that sounds interesting. Also, with reincarnation, which actually is, I told a priest friend told me that we're allowed to have one heresy, and my heresy is that I like reincarnation and wish that it were true, but just so I could be reincarnated into a moose. But I feel like usually that would be going down in your reincarnation form from human to animal.
That's kind of speciesist. I don't think I can continue this.
Okay, well,
I don't want to be canceled. So I'm going to have to go.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking, I just watched The Art of Racing in the Rain, which is a great book that I have read. And the entire time, the dog is like, I'm excited to come back as a human. And so that for him, for Enzo, is like going up. So maybe Sherlock, because didn't Sherlock have a drug problem? So maybe he's...
Technicalities. Yes.
Technicalities?
No, yes, he did.
Okay, well, anyway, I mean, maybe he's just paying for it. But no, that actually sounds really interesting. Did you have trouble starting to read it? Because sometimes I really have to like the first one is a stutter stop because, you know, going backwards basically. Well, backwards for us, going in a different direction. How about that?
And not just in the book, I kind of figured that out, but the page, going through the page right to left, that was the struggle. And you do that, you know, 300 times.
Yeah.
So you'd think by the end you'd get pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But that was the trying to put that together.
I agree. And then because I had read a series and there were like 9 volumes, and then the first comic, US comic that I read, I started reading it like a manga. So it's retraining your brain, just retraining your brain. So I do have some anime watch list recommendations, and I had them last episode, but I was getting really nervous with Zoom, and so I thought I just need to race through my literature recommendations and then this show will be done. So I'm going to do it here. So they're both films that I recommend, and they're both on Netflix.
So I'm sorry, so you said by rushing through the episode last time that kept it to under 7.5 hours, or
yeah, that's exactly what I just said. Thank you for perverting my words. So film number 1 is Violet Evergarden's side story Eternity and the Auto Memory Doll. It's 2019, an hour and 31 minutes. Isabella, the daughter of the noble York family, is enrolled in an all-girls academy to be groomed into a dame worthy of nobility. However, she has given up on her future, seeing the prestigious school as nothing more than a prison from the outside world. Her family notices her struggle in her lessons and decides to hire Violet Evergarden to personally tutor her under the guise of a handmaiden. At first, Isabella treats Violet coldly. Violet seems to be able to do everything perfectly, leading Isabella to assume that she was born with a silver spoon. After some time together, Isabella begins to realize that Violet has had her own struggles and starts to open up to her. Isabella soon reveals that she has lost contact with her beloved younger sister, Taylor Bartlett, whom she yearns to see again. Having experienced the power of words through her past clientele, Violet asks if Isabella wishes to write a letter to Taylor. Will Violet be able to help Isabella convey her feelings to her long-lost sister? And yeah, so Isabella also had some experience with the war, just in a different fashion. So I recommend that. And then Ni no Kuni, 2019, again, an hour and 46 minutes. And there's a subtle connection to the video games, but it's a different story than that, but same art style, you know, very Studio Ghibli. High schooler Yu and his friend Haru get involved in a case involving his childhood friend Katona, which forces them to go back and forth between another world that is different but is somewhat similar to their world, Ni no Kuni. The real world and Ni no Kuni when Katona... There's weird phrasing. Sorry. When Katona's life is in danger, what's the ultimate choice the 3 of them have to make in Ni no Kuni? And yeah, this was great fun, and you don't have to have played the video games to enjoy this. I've only played the second one personally. That was my first JRPG, which I was very nervous about. So both of those, very beautiful. And of course, I will always recommend Violet Evergarden, period, on Netflix as well.
I've heard good things about Violet Evergarden.
Oh, so good. Yeah, there's a top episode that I have where Violet spends time with a mother, and there's a little daughter there, and the daughter wants to play with her mom all the time, and you don't know until the end what's actually going on. It's so beautiful and tragic. It's great. So I recommend that for sure. Oh boy. Well, now we're getting into part of the main course of this podcast. So we're going to talk Officer Down. And what we're going to do is Alan's going to do the recaps. Thank you for that, Alan. And as we go, we'll talk about the covers. We'll do recaps, covers as we talk about the issue. Well, okay, so let me start this over. So for example, Alan will recap part 1. Right before he starts his recap, he'll talk about the cover, which I'll also add in and engage in. Then he'll go to part 2. So that's what we're going to do. So just recaps, and then we'll take our break, and then we'll come back and actually have a sizable review of this. I think that's the best way to split up this particular episode. So hopefully my computer doesn't bust as I open up all these covers and everything. But you are good to go, sir. You're the pilot now.
I was not informed of this. No. Okay.
Could you imagine? What if I did that to somebody?
One, That would be really funny. 2, make it Tom, make it Tom, make it Tom, make it Tom,
I don't.
make it Tom.
Oh man, I want to keep Tom as a friend. I think he'd be really upset if I did that to him. By the way, you know
That's
you're
your
doing the
call.
recaps? Oh man. Plus he writes all his recaps out by hand, so he'd be really upset.
Troublemaker. So we've got Batman 587. This is the cover shows Jim Gordon gun smoking.
Yep.
Down. Is he falling, or he's down on the ground? It does not look good for him, and we are told officer down.
Yep. And I will say that all of the covers have a similar art style.
Yes.
The palette of colors is rather similar and just almost film noirish, but with color rather than black and white. And so I actually really love this entire series. Yeah, it looks like he's in the process of falling. There's blood behind him, a spatter, so you know something's happening. And then down the aisle, there's some sort of action going on, which could be is it called the flash point, flash bang? I don't know, of a gun. So you kind of get a sense of what's happening with Jim here.
And this 587, These Are Your Rights by Greg Rich Burchett and Rodney Ramos. The GCBD, and in the interest of full disclosure, the DC Wikia was heavily used as the jumping off point for these summaries. I just improved them greatly.
I use them all the time.
I miss Comic Book DB. Anyway, just throwing that out to you. But the GCPD throws Commissioner Gordon a birthday party, but he has also bought gifts for them, handcuff keys. And he explains why, in addition to being something you can never find when you need them. The handcuff key is a symbol of what makes police officers unique. They're the only people who have the power to remove someone's freedom. And while it's a necessary task, it's also a weighty one. Every person they take away is somebody's child, husband, brother. The awesomeness of their responsibility is easy to forget, but has to be remembered. All the while, Batman is using his police radio much more than normal to patrol, which is kind of his birthday present to his old friend. Gordon wraps up his speech, having promised Barbara he would be home early. In the alley outside, Gordon meets Catwoman. Several shots ring out, and a confused Gordon hits the ground, 3 bullets in his back. The end.
May he rest in peace.
Then we go to Robin 86. And like you said, similar style for the cover. In this one, we do have Catwoman crouched down over the body of Jim Gordon. And as you said, there is a lot of blood. This is Behind the Lines. Ed Brubaker, Jacob Pander, and Arnold Pander. Barbara Gordon has heard the news of her father's shooting over the police radio, but must pretend she is unaware of it until the department comes officially to give her the word. While the police attempt to corner Catwoman, Catwoman witnesses the real culprit, who's not Catwoman, hiding the weapon. Barbara and Montoya comfort each other at the hospital, and acting Commissioner Akins attempts to summon Batman. And investigating, it does not take Gotham's finest long to realize that Catwoman probably is not the one who shot the commissioner. Gotham's costume protectors answer Oracle's call and learn what happened, but Batman already knew, and he takes it particularly hard. Barbara summons the rest of the family, and Dick Grayson gets there just in time to comfort her, if you know what I'm saying. Dick was with Batman earlier, and he reports that the old man went berserk after hearing the news, tried to kill the robbers they were stopping, and when Nightwing tried talking sense into him, Batman punched him in the face. Long overdue. Anyway, we joke. Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, and Azrael are at the hospital with Barbara, but she's missing Batman. However, when Batgirl points at James Gordon's room, where he was resting after a long operation, she turns around and finds the Dark Knight standing next to her father. Because not only can he disappear, whoosh, he can appear. Whoosh. Then we get the unofficial tie-in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We get Batgirl 12, which takes place at the same time. It does have an Officer Down logo across the top of the cover, but it is done in a more traditional comic style.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a fit and a misfit.
Yeah. Yeah. So the cover itself doesn't have what I was just talking about, but you have Batgirl on a ledge and kind of Times Square location-esque, where you've got on one of those big screens a picture of Jim, and then underneath it, it says Gordon shot on the ribbon.
Now, this does take place at the same time as Robin 86. So that's sort of the tie-in. This is Chuck Dixon, Dale Eaglesham, and Andrew Hennessy. Cass Kane hears the news that Commissioner Gordon has been shot. She knows that Batman is his friend and Oracle is his daughter, so she sets out to help search for the gunman. At Police HQ, she overhears that Catwoman is a suspect, so decides to track her down, visiting each of her known locations. And the last one does end up being Catwoman's apartment, but she's not home. Batgirl's presence activates a trap, but she evades the net, the bear pit, and the tranquilizing darts, because this is a heck of a trap, in case it wasn't clear, only to find herself under attack from Sly Fox and his gang, there to settle a score with Catwoman. Batgirl fights them off, trapping Sly Fox in the bear pit with a broken leg, because, that's how Gotham apartments roll. They have bear pits.
Yep.
So, some places have like a sunken living room or like a jacuzzi tub, but some have bear pits, evidently. She sets out to find the others to help them so justice can be done. Then we get Birds of Prey 27. What, did I mess up?
No. Well, because Birds of Prey, that's like, that's, why I'm recapping these things. Yeah.
Then we get Birds of Prey 27 in the cover here. We've got, I guess, sort of the chalk outline. Mm-hmm. And we've got Crispus Allen and Montoya and Bullock sort of staring down. But again, it has that. We're back to that common theme and cover style.
Mm-hmm.
This is Armed and Dangerous, Chuck Dixon and Stephen Harris and John Nyberg. At James Gordon's hospital room, Batwoman orders his associates to track down Catwoman, their only lead so far. Even Barbara is ordered to leave, while Batman remains behind, a circumstance that both Barbara and Alfred criticize him for. We have the GCPD squad is pretty unimpressed with the guy leading up the investigation and the new acting commissioner. But the officers looking into this get no leads whatsoever from potential eyewitnesses. No one in the area saw or heard a thing, evidently. Batgirl, Nightwing, Azrael, and Robin seek out Catwoman's known associates and take a more enhanced, aggressive approach to gather information. And they learn that Catwoman probably has her eyes set on some valuable emeralds. They spot a woman infiltrating the museum, but they discover that it is, in fact, not Catwoman, but her buddy Harley Quinn. Harley extracts a promise that they will not hurt her friend Catwoman in exchange for revealing her whereabouts. The heroes rush off, but not before Batgirl delivers what we call a consequence, a punishing blow to Harley, because Harley forgot to include herself in the promise that they wouldn't hurt Catwoman. Which leads us to Catwoman. Catwoman 90. And here we've got some members of the Bat family basically in that same location where the officers were last issue, with the I'm guessing with the chalk outline there.
Yep.
And it's raining.
It is raining, which I do want to get to talk about that with the Batgirl issue, because I thought that was a bit odd. But what I like about this is that you've got the 4 members in kind of a standard group pose and looking down. Obviously, it's a solemn scene, but behind them or underneath them, in terms of Azrael, you've got their shadows in action, which sort of points to what they do within the actual issue.
This is Smoking Gun by Bronwyn Carlton, Mike Lilly, and Wayne Faucher. Despite being injured, Catwoman desperately races across the Gotham rooftops to escape the various costumed vigilantes who are pursuing her in connection with the shooting. She's gradually worn down and eventually captured by members of the Batman family, having been guided by Oracle. She reveals that she saw Gordon's attacker, and although she wouldn't be able to identify the specific person, it was definitely a cop. She's even able to give them the location of the gun used to shoot the commissioner, which she saw the cop in question hide, and then she went back and hided it in a different hidey place. So following her instructions, they found it, and the heroes let Catwoman go, vowing to trace the weapon. And meanwhile, doctors perform some surgeries on the commissioner. Which takes us to Nightwing 53. And here we've got Nightwing doing his, acrobat, on the telephone wires or something stretching across the a couple of buildings, and he is looking down on a scene.
On a scene with his girlfriend.
Who's that? Who's that redhead there? Who's that redhead there? So I mean, it's a little creepy, a little stalkery, but you interpret it however you want to. Nightwing brings Barbara the gun. Oh, wait, did I say? This is, I see why I wanted to skip the title. Because it's called Inculpatory. I think. I don't know. It sounds like a legal thing.
Oh, my.
That is by Devin Grayson, Rick Burchett, who I think I may have called her Rich Burchett earlier in the episode, and Rodney Ramos. Nightwing brings Barbara the gun, and she searches out its source, acting on the info from Catwoman that the shooter was a fellow police officer. The gun itself once belonged to the Lucky Hand Triad, part of a stash of weapons that was confiscated from them earlier in the year. One of the officers, there's two, Lowell or Rich, failed to hand this particular weapon in, as they should have done, perhaps planning to use it as a drop gun. Barbara knows Officer Lowell. He helped defend the clock tower during No Man's Land. But Officer Rich is a new recruit, and Oracle quickly figures out that he's actually Jordan Reynolds, a former mafia member in Chicago, arrested years ago by James Gordon. Da, da, da. He turned state's evidence and was released under witness protection with a new identity and a grudge. At the hospital, Alfred is frustrated by Batman's reaction to the shooting, simply waiting at Gordon's bedside, not helping him in any way, not making any effort to catch the man who shot him. And so, Alfred quits.
Finally.
Wait a minute. Later, unseen by anyone, Gordon wakes for the first time since the attack. On the other side of the city, Nightwing approaches Harvey Bullock and hands him the gun, telling him all he needs to know about both the gun and the man who attempted to kill the commissioner. And then, whoa, we're winding down now. We are in the home stretch. We have got Detective Comics 754. Again, we have our officers in an outside scene, and Harvey's looking pretty frustrated.
Yeah, it's interesting. This one and then the other issue that we had with Harvey, I can tell that it's Harvey mainly because of his hat. But if you didn't have that, it just seems like a more attractive version of Harvey. Because, I mean, he's pretty grizzled. He usually has lots of stubble, and he's not the slimmest. I said stubble. You have actual hair growth, but you know, he's not the slimmest of police. And so it's interesting. You kind of, they've really made him into more of a romanticized version of Harvey, which is interesting. But yeah.
This is Monster in a Box by Nunzio De Filippis, Mike Collins, Steve Bird, and Jesse Delperdang. Detectives Montoya and Crispus Allen have Jordan Rich, the man they are certain is responsible for the commissioner's shooting, in the box, determined to extract a confession because they know they don't have the physical evidence needed, despite having the gun. And as a cop and former criminal, he smugly avoids all the traps they lay for him, even when they threaten to bring Batman in. At the hospital, Gordon has recently woken up and can confirm Rich's identity to Lieutenant Bullock, but did not see the man who shot him. Eventually, the police have to let Rich go. Batman confronts him on the streets of Gotham, but he is powerless. He doesn't have it in him to kill the officer. Does that mean he'll never have justice? And this confrontation is witnessed by Montoya from the shadows. And then we wrap it all up with Batman, Gotham Knights number 13. And here we have Batman for the first time on a cover. He is in the streets. He is in the streets. And he is in an alleyway, and he doesn't look happy.
He doesn't look happy, yeah. And it seems like it's daylight out, which is also uncommon for Batman to be out. But yeah, you have the commish with a cane in the background looking towards Batman. And the Batman has either a dismissive hand, a left hand up, or saying goodbye but not looking at him, which of course speaks to what happens in the actual issue.
And in case we didn't make it clear, this one is called The End. Just so you know. This is by Greg Rucka again, Rick Burchett, and Rodney Ramos. 2 weeks have passed since Gordon was shot by Jordan Reynolds, a man whose life was destroyed after Gordon arrested him many years ago. So the commissioner's out of the hospital walking with the use of his cane and has made a very difficult decision. It is time to retire. So he addresses the major crimes unit personally to explain that and to say goodbye. They do not take it well, particularly Bullock and maybe even more so Montoya. She blames herself for the inability to prove that Reynolds was the man that shot Gordon. Gordon introduces the new commissioner, Michael Akins, to the Batman, but that meeting, a little bit awkward. It does not go well. It's not go well. For one, Batman is angry that his old friend did not speak to him about it first, although Gordon does point out it's not very easy to contact Batman. Montoya calls in sick, and Bullock suspects he knows where she's gone, to Rich's apartment to make him pay for what he did to the commissioner. He stops her from shooting the man, but threatens him himself and then leaves. Gordon and Batman have a more reasonable talk where the Dark Knight is persuaded to give Akins a chance. Still later, Jordan Rich's apartment stands empty. A blood stain on the floor. The end.
And what an end that is. Thank you so much for doing all of the recaps. I think I'll give you an AA+.
Yes.
So that's what, yeah, so some gold stars are on the way for your
do I get to do a teacher evaluation of you?
Of me? Yeah, I can send you a survey at the end.
That would be great. Thank you.
But yes, Mrs. Quarterbin can pin up your gold stars on the refrigerator once I send them to her. So, okay, people. So normally we would review right now, but we're actually going to take a break just because I want to be sure that this is okay. And I think splitting up these videos anyways into bite-sized chunks worked in the past. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be giving our thoughts in-depth review on Officer Down. But first, it is Zaius's Radio Hour featuring Be Kind by Marshmello and Halsey. Maybe they wrote that for for Batman specifically. Okay, see you guys soon.